Hello and welcome to the Nintendo Switch Online Game Club, the show where we play through the games available on Nintendo's various NSO apps completely at random. I'm your host, Derrick Bittner, and in this episode I'm joined once again by Ash Paulsen, fellow member of Good Vibes Gaming. How you doing, Ash?
I'm great. I'm here with you fine fellas. How could I not be great? I'm ready to go.
Yeah, and the returning GillyTheKid, the YouTuber who was last here to enjoy Blaster Master. How you doing, Gil?
Hello. As I recall, I did not love Blaster Master.
No, you did not.
You were not the master of blasting, as it were.
It is not a good time for him. But as you're both likely aware, there are now over 200 games across the NSO, and while some are widely known like Super Mario Bros. And Zelda, there are some odd picks that could be considered hidden gems. We honestly don't know. So what we do is we enter all those games into a randomizer, pick one, and then give our initial thoughts. And this week, the Wheel of Games has chosen, ironically enough, our first Zelda game, The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. What is our history?
A little hidden gem.
Yeah, this hidden gem. Yeah, you might have heard of it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think this Zelda thing's gonna catch on. I don't know. Seems a bit hokey, but yes. What is our experience with Majora's Mask in particular? Gil, let's start with you.
I got it when it came out. So I've been playing it since it came out. I was always a Ocarina of Time guy, but like I always liked the whole aesthetic and tone and story of Majora's Mask. But the things that I like most, I'm not very into side questing, and I really like main dungeons and the main story of a game. So it was always something where like I loved Majora's Mask, but the parts that I really like, I wish there were more of. Because it's very limited in the main dungeon department, but overall it's good. I personally prefer the way Ocarina was handled.
Right. What about you, Ash?
Strangely enough, very similar thoughts and history with Majora's Mask. I got it back when it came out. In fact, I imported the Japanese version as well because I was so hungry for the sequel
Oh boy!
To Ocarina
Good luck
of Time
figuring
back
out
then.
what to do with that.
It didn't work out very well. I never made it out of Clocktown until the Western version came out. But then, of course, I got that at launch as well. Played the 3DS version and reviewed it actually. And it's kind of like you, Gil. I'm sorry, we got the Majora's Mask hype police over here in LA. Kind of like you, Gil. I'm not a Majora's Mask truther. I like the game, and I know a lot of people out there absolutely love it, say it's their favorite. But I have always been more of an Ocarina guy as well. I really appreciate Majora's Mask for what it does so differently and the risks it takes. And I love the tone. Of course, it's really dark and really unsettling, and there's some genuinely sad, bleak plot points going on, especially with some of the side quests. But kind of like you, I wish there was more of what I love most about Ocarina in Majora's Mask, and that's more like the main quest and the dungeons and stuff. So actually, it seems like you and I are coming at this from a very similar point of view.
Actually, it also, I think I realized afterward, like when I became an adult and realized I had anxiety, I was like, oh, that's why that game bothered me.
Yeah.
It all makes sense now. Oh God.
How did you react though? Because I still so I don't know how you guys are, but I have like very specific gaming memories of like first times something happened, if something was like significant to me.
Oh, sure.
And I remember it. How did you react after having played Ocarina? And like I played Ocarina to death. Like that's a
Me
game
too.
where like even after I beat it, I was using like Game Shark to just like levitate and stuff and try to
Same,
break things and like So like I played that game well after I had already finished the game. So I was very very familiar with it. When Majora came out, and you first played it and you first started controlling Link, how did you react when you made the first jump and Link flips?
Oh, I flipped out. Well, I flipped out. I was like, oh, he looks so
loved
cool.
I was like, no way.
I was like, that's bad. It's like you can tell he's grown from his experience in Ocarina. He's even straight. It definitely sold the power fantasy like he had grown in strength from Ocarina. Yeah. I love that. And the side flip too.
Yeah.
Dude, I was immediately, because I was so used to him just, and then he does that flip, and I'm like,
I mean,
that was on purpose.
Totally, totally. The funny thing
Absolutely.
is, I'm glad I have that memory because I did not own an N64 growing up. I borrowed a friend's copy of Ocarina of Time as a sort of exchange because I had Final Fantasy VII. They had Ocarina, so like, hey, you borrow this, I'll borrow this, and we did, gave each other the systems as well. So that's how I played Ocarina, and then I eventually was able to play. I forget, I don't even know how I played it, but I played the Majora's Mask on N64, but I only had like 30 minutes. Like I had to go do something real quick. So I turned it on, got the amazing opening cutscene where Link's like barely holding on to Epona as he's being dragged through the forest. I'm like, this is an awesome set piece. Then you have that first flip, and then you get the clock town and like, okay, this is pretty cool. And you have the moon and the timer going on. I'm like, I gotta go. I'm like, I got this cool opening cutscene and stuff, but I have to get going. So where's a save point? I'm running all around the town. Where's a save point? What's happening? I'm running out of time. And the stress of that moment alone made me stop playing the game. Like I never came back to it. I'm like, I can't handle this time limit.
It's funny because the thing that people constantly chastise the 3DS version for are the things that make me enjoy it more.
Same. I'm so the same way. Like, there were so many Majora's Mask, original fans just chastising the 3DS version about, for not, feeling as oppressive as the original. And I'm like, yeah, but the atmosphere is still oppressive, but I don't need the game to actually feel oppressive in terms of the time limit and being so strict in terms of saving and stuff.
I don't want to feel like it. I like when things in games are difficult or frustrating, but it needs to ramp up to that. And then there's a thing that's difficult or frustrating and you overcome it. I don't want to feel like I'm playing perfection or operation the entire time that I'm playing a video game.
Yeah. Right. It's also just the time limit thing. That was such a new idea at the time and a very brave one for them to go in that direction. But I do think that, if you're coming straight from Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask does suffer from something of an obtuse opening. That first bit in Clocktown where you've really got to figure out what to do and talk to everybody and, be really everything you need to do to get out of Clocktown. It's just, I think, a little bit too obtuse for its own good. Probably. Yeah. It's not a great way to start the game off pacing wise, I don't think.
Yeah, because when I went back, I don't like.
Oh, God. No, go on.
Okay. When I played the 3DS version, I didn't have any of those issues at all. I understood. I was coming into it with years of like, oh, this is why people like this. I know what I need to do now. Figured it all out, and all the upgrades that the 3DS version had, like a better bomber's notebook and a way to keep track of everything. I did everything in the game, all the side quests, got all the masks, did everything was possible, and I ended up really enjoying the game. But I've never gone back to the N64 version, so I don't know how different they really are.
I don't like when games start you out as something other than you play the game as. Like this game, for example, or something like even the beginning of like Mario 64 DS, right, where you like have to play as Yoshi.
Right.
I don't like stuff like that, and especially like I think it kind of soured the Deku Scrub transformation for me because it wasn't. I mean, narratively it's cool. But if you had been playing as Link and then you get the Deku Scrub mask and now you get a different transformation, it probably would have been like, oh, I get to do this now. But the whole time playing as the Deku Scrub in the beginning, it's like, I can't wait to not have to do this anymore.
I remember that too. I felt the same way.
I'm tired of getting the crap kicked out of me by dogs and these people not letting me out of the town and everybody treating me like crap.
And then after that, anytime I had to switch, like, it's fun being Zora Link. It's fun being Goron Link. Anytime I had to switch to Deku Link, I'm like, oh, I got to do this now.
Yeah, it definitely, like, especially after that initial power fantasy and cool moment of seeing how Link, Child Link has grown from Ocarina and doing the cool flips. It's like, no, I want to just play as him for a while. I don't, but I guess it also does have the counter effect in a positive way of making you look forward to the other forms that much more because the Deku Scrub is so meh compared to like, ooh, I'm going to get to play as a Goron. I'm going to get to play as a Zora. Like that makes that part more exciting, I think.
I mean, even looking at it from previews and stuff like that, it's like, oh, cool, the Gorons. Oh, cool, the Zoras. Deku Scrub. Why the hell do I want to be a Deku Scrub?
Exactly, yeah.
It's not the power fantasy. It's not one of those races that's like, yes, heck yeah, let's do this. And I'm good. But
VMN in our live audience chat makes a good point, saying I think that might be part of the point. Deku Scrub was meant to be a curse put on you after all, and that's a good point. I think Yeah, like you're supposed to feel weak and oppressed upon in terms of having to play as a Deku Scrub at the beginning.
Yeah,
I just don't know.
But then it's a permanent power up
Yeah.
that
Right.
has to be used in certain instances, and every time I use it, I don't want to.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the decisions gameplay wise almost feel narratively driven. Like, okay, we want to have this feeling, so we're going to do this to the player or have this stipulation or something like that. And I know everybody is like, I highly doubt I'm going to beat this game in this week. This is definitely an in-depth game, and I don't want to just rush through it all, but I do want to get through it quite a bit more than I probably would have otherwise. I want to at least reach Zora Link, because that always seems like the hot topic for whether you like the 3DS version or the original version, because everybody's like, no, Zora Link is so much better than the original. Okay,
Right.
sure.
There's barely any water in that game.
I know, that's what I was thinking as I was playing. It's like,
you get
It's really
you beat
just
that
the
part,
third
and then
segment of
that's
the game.
it.
Yeah. And I remember not having an issue with the swimming controls in the 3DS version. I remember, now it's been a long time since I played the N64 version, so, it'll be interesting to compare and contrast. But I remember when I was playing it, I'm like, I don't really have an issue with this.
I think the complaint was that it uses magic in order to do the speed that you had in the original version.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like there isn't even that much water in that game. Once you're done with that whole area, that's it. You don't need to keep.
But then you get the Chateau Romani and you're good.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's an odd thing. Again, it's going to be fascinating going back to this and like seeing the original version to see whether it still clicks in the same way as the 3DS version, knowing its limitations and whether it, I'm sure it's still fun, but will I be as into it? I guess is the big question I'm going into with this episode.
Same.
So,
yeah.
But, well, we all kind of know this game pretty well, so there's not I don't know if there's too much else to say. Any other thoughts before we break for the week to go play some Majora's Mask?
I can't. I mean, like you said, we all know the game so well. This is this is different. The last. Well, I got Donkey Kong Country with Lady Pelvic before, so that was a game I knew well.
There's something
so really,
about you and
just,
this wheel, Ash. You keep getting games that you really enjoy. I don't know what it is.
Well, except for the first one, which is the actual like new game for me, which is Shining Force, and that was a cool experience because I'd never played it before. But I just keep getting these games I know so well, so I don't know. I have this magic effect on the wheel.
Good games like that. That's a record most people do not have.
That's true. I'm not. Yeah, I didn't get like Scat for example, or what was the puzzle game you got? Bamboozled. Bamboozled. Yeah. Bamboozled. Yeah, I didn't get that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be back in a week. Not too long for you guys. After playing some Majora's Mask. So, see you soon.
One hope. Rated E for everyone.
And we're back after a week of playing Majora's Mask for the N64. And all of us are at least somewhat familiar with Majora's Mask itself. Personally, this is my first time really trying to dive into Majora's Mask on Nintendo 64. But Ash, let's start with you. Coming back to Majora's Mask on the Nintendo 64, what'd you end up thinking?
This has been a really fun rediscovery for me because it's been a long time since I played it on N64. It's really, I've only played Majora all the way through twice in my life. Once when it came out on 64, and then once when it came out on 3. For me, this is a game that even though I know all the, the big beats, the big stuff, I don't know it intimately, like the back of my hand, like I do Ocarina, which I played, God, I don't even know how many times over the years. So for me, it was not nice not only revisiting the game in general, but also specifically the N64 version, because it had been such a long time since I had seen those assets, this version of that world, and just kind of taking it all back in, remembering what the original version of this game looked like. And no expansion pack required this time. It all just works. I love it.
What about you, Gil? I mean, you played Majora's Mask a lot, but is it still, how's it hold up for you compared to other
Yeah.
Zeldas? I guess is the big thing.
I mean, I still have the same feelings about it. I like it a lot. I like and I said this last time, but like I like it a lot. I like the atmosphere and tone and everything. But for what I look for in a Zelda game, it doesn't have enough of that. So it's kind of a short visit for me. But I also don't like, in terms of like it being the N64 version, I don't have that much experience with I mentioned before we went live. I don't have that much experience with the 3DS version because I I had just beaten Majora's Mask again, like the year that it came out on 3DS, and then it came out, and so I played as much as I could on the 3DS, but I never beat the 3DS version because I was burnt out on it. And then it's not my favorite Zelda game, so I like never went back to try and beat the 3DS version.
You didn't feel a need because the basic.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to, but also I don't really like playing on handhelds to begin with.
Okay.
So it's
Oh,
like
fair.
it's like those two things combined. I'm like it didn't. Maybe one day I'll finish the 3DS version, but I had no reason. All my experiences with the N64 version.
You need a
Pretty
port.
much.
You need a port of the 3DS version.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
That'd be
really
really nice. So it's kind of funny.
Coffee.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of funny for me going back to this, because I'm so used to the 3DS version because that's the version I played to completion. I only played a little bit of it originally. Didn't even get past the first 3 days, because I just had no idea what I was doing. And in retrospect, that guided experience of the first 3 days is surprisingly well crafted because there's only so many places you can go. There's only so many things you can do, but they keep you just active enough for it to take up that amount of time. So as you're figuring everything out, maybe exploring a little bit, that you see it all and get a sense of what this world is like before cutting you loose and letting you really go for it. But there were moments that just threw me off. Like I was looking for the bank at one point. And I'm like, where the hell is it? It's supposed to be behind the clock tower. And it's not behind the clock tower because it's off on the western side of Clocktown because they changed the location apparently for the 3DS version.
Oh, I forgot that they changed that.
I did too, actually. I completely forgot that.
I
because
was so
what's funny,
lost.
too, is that it's so funny because it's been longer since I played the N64 version, but the banker was where I always remembered him to be. I completely forgot that they changed where he was. That's so funny.
Yeah, it was very odd. And I gotta say, after playing, I did not finish Majora's Mask. I honestly didn't get too far into it because I just coming back to a single thought. I like the 3DS version better. I think the 3DS version is superior because.
Oh,
I know. That's a hot take.
I got a video you should watch.
I'm sure there's a lot of videos out there about why I am wrong for that take.
You know what's funny is I do too, at least I thought I did, and I still do in a way. And here's what's weird is from a quality of life standpoint and from a technical visual standpoint, obviously the 3DS version is better in my opinion. I think that version is more eminently playable. I know there are the purists who like how restrictive saving is and such in the N64 version, and I get
but
it.
Ash,
fine.
it's too bright. It's too bright.
Well, but,
you gotta.
but here's what I was gonna say is that actually, yeah, I think the visuals obviously are technically better on the 3DS, but there's something about that early 3D N64 PS1 era that really, those garish textures, those really primitive character models, they make an already creepy game look creepier. And in my opinion, it actually works to Majora's Mask's advantage to have those more primitive graphics because the world just seems more ominous, and it actually is a little less colorful and less bright. but it works for Majora's Mask. It doesn't work for Ocarina of Time in the same way. But for
Yeah.
Majora, I kind of liked seeing just how, I don't know, basic some of that stuff looked, and it just added to that ominous vibe, in my opinion.
I
The
can't
textures
disagree.
especially.
I
About the
can't disagree with that. I totally get you in that aspect. There's definitely a look that Majora's Mask on N64 has that really makes it disturbing. And for whatever reason, the most disturbing thing I can think of in this entire game is always the freaking carpenter the leader, because he's just standing with his arms crossed and going, oh, the way his mouth opens and the way you see into his mouth is like, that's the grossest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
I feel like there could have been something done though with like in terms of like what Ash just said. They could have done something with like the lighting and the like they could have stylistically still made it creepier.
yeah. They probably didn't
like,
want to get into the creepy bit because they was like, it's for kids and they don't want to creep them out. But
I guess, but it's like like Ash is right about the textures and everything being like how they're more primitive, and it aids to it being kind of like darker and creepier and grittier. But like they could have done something with the lighting. It's like they updated all the textures and then made it too bright. They could have done something like kept those updated textures and models and everything, but still made it invoke the same kind of feel, because it does take. I think the lighting does take away from it.
yeah.
Right.
In the 3DS version, but
The
It's funny.
oh, go ahead, Ash.
Oh, good.
No, you got it.
You say, you say it's for kids, and ostensibly you're right, but man, I had forgotten just how bleak some of the smaller story bits are. Like, of course, I remember all the big moments, but like some of those smaller stuff, like the monkey actually being tortured, being lowered into an out of the pod, and where he's, you're playing the song of healing and all the Gorons are cheering for him and he's crying, and I'm like, God, man.
you know what? It's not super for kids.
No, not really. You literally find the butler and he's like, "Oh yeah, I lost my son," which turns out that's the Deku scrub you are. There's a lot of messed up moments in this.
Everyone's dead or dying.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
It's really and like you have the Goron Elder's baby, and you realize that okay, on your next cycle you're gonna go be doing something else, and those Gorons, including that baby, they're all gonna freeze to death. Like, yeah, you're saving them this cycle, but every other cycle they literally all freeze to death, and it's like, yeah, until you of course save the world, but like man, it's just. And then of course the Romani Ranch stuff. If you don't save Romani, God, that's just like a stake through the heart, man.
It always did strike me as very interesting that if you do all the side quests, get all the masks, all the heart pieces, all that stuff, you have all these epilogues showing that everybody's happy, everything's good now, and they leave those out if you don't do any of those. But it's also like, how does that work with the time travel? Are we supposed to suspect that Link just managed to get all that done in this one go this time? Or are they just like, you need a happy ending here. Take this.
Right.
Also, you watch a Zora and then put his face on your face.
Yeah, that's also true.
Yeah, and then and then trick the mother of his unborn children. So.
Yeah, not.
That's wild. Yep.
It's Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask. No matter which version you play, there is an inherent darkness to it that works and makes it stand out so much compared to other Zeldas. And you definitely would not get that if you had the same type of focus on dungeons that Ocarina has. It's because it's all these side stories. But I gotta say that comes to my sort of big problem with this, is that I don't have this encyclopedic knowledge of Majora's Mask, where to go at what time, what to do when. And so the Bomber's Notebook in the 3DS version was a lifesaver. The Bomber's Notebook in the N64 version feels like there's no guide, like so little guidance comparatively. I struggled to find some of the side quests and what I was supposed to do, and the fact there's limitations on how many you could take at a time. And like, I just felt like, am I wasting my time with this? And stuff I thought I knew I couldn't find again because it's been so long. And it just felt, I don't know. I felt less inclined to do the side stuff because I couldn't find it half the time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And there's way too much guesswork that goes into like finding, like following different townspeople around, checking different buildings at different times of day. It's definitely a little bit too obtuse, I think, in that sense. And I actually, for like the latter half of the time that I spent playing this game, I just started using like a guide to look up some of the side stuff and just see what I've been missing because I don't like you, I don't have that same encyclopedic knowledge of Majora that I do Ocarina. And this is a game where I feel like having a guide actually for that side stuff makes it a lot more fun. Like I didn't use it for the dungeons I did, the main quest stuff I didn't. But in terms of tracking down all the different townspeople, what you can do with them, the different mini games, the different side stories and side quests, like I was actually having a lot more fun using a guide for that stuff. And that's just one normally I wouldn't say like that about most games, but like there are some games out there which I feel like maybe they're a little bit too obtuse for their own good in some ways, and a guide actually just takes that obtuseness away and
Mm.
makes it a lot more fun just to see some of the nooks and crannies that I would otherwise miss.
Yeah, I think I'd rather that because the Bomber's Notebook and the 3DS version, I so structure stresses me out.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
So so having a notebook with like all these, I'm like I couldn't pay attention in the 3DS version.
Oh wow.
I'd probably it's not for me.
That's funny
I think
because
I'd
having
probably
that structure of like, okay, here's what I gotta do. Let me start just chipping away at this. It's very interesting how the different
Yeah.
ideas work. And
Yeah, for
for
me,
me,
I
it's
look
just
at that
like,
and I panic. That's
see that's so funny. It's the opposite for me where I look at like, okay, I know I have to get this stuff. There's stuff for me to do within this 3 day time frame, but I have no idea where to go for it. So I just keep rewinding time in order to try to stumble upon this thing, and that stresses me out. So it's two very different
Yeah.
forms of stress coming out there. But I guess the 3DS version, because of the way it's numbered, Bomber's Notebook it's just basically a built-in guide or enough of a guide that you can.
Yeah.
Because I didn't consult a guide whatsoever with
Right.
the 3DS version, but I feel like, yeah, having that for the N64 version would be almost paramount.
Yeah.
At least, but I know there's some people who play this game over and over and over again. They don't need a guide at all. It's like, yeah, I go here this time,
Yeah.
get this done, whatever. I got this down.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't doubt that I would have that same kind of knowledge if I did play Majora the same way that I played Ocarina so much over the years. But I just find, and we touched a little bit about this, in the first part of our discussion. I just have always found I love Majora's uniqueness and the really forward thinking and risky ideas it has. But I just like Ocarina's more traditional structure and approachability
Yeah.
more. It's
Mhm.
just that just appeals to me more. I think they both absolutely have their own unique merits. I just find Ocarina personally easier for me to go back to. But what's funny is that like doing this, I kind of do wish I had the time to keep, to finish this new playthrough of Majora's Mask on N64 because it's been so long, and I am having fun rediscovering this really archaic version of this world. And so I actually, if I had the time, I'd kind of want to keep seeing it through to the end. I just, I know that's not realistic, but despite some of the rough edges for the N64 version, I've really enjoyed the experience of kind of going back and rediscovering this, this game from 2000 that I saw. In my mind's eye, I see the more recent version of the 3DS version, but it's been really fun rediscovering the original version. And some of the stuff, there are some aspects that I really do prefer in the original, even in the gameplay sense. Like the first boss fight, I forgot just how much they dumbed down the Adalwa fight for 3DS.
Mhm.
Oh,
Adalwa is shockingly hard for a first Zelda boss. Like one of the hardest first Zelda bosses out there, I'd say. To say nothing that you get like one shotted if you're a Deku Link and touch the fire. Like it's crazy that can happen to you. And usually Zelda games are a lot more handholdy than that, especially more recent ones. But yeah, it's that Adalwa fight. I was like, oh, this is actually sufficiently challenging for a first Zelda boss. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did take a few too many liberties with the 3DS
Yeah.
version.
Made it a
yeah.
little bit too easy in some ways. I think the Bomber's
Not
Notebook
even
stuff,
just
I think that was the right way to go. But yeah.
not even just but like not even the way of making it easier. Like there are parts that are easier obviously, but they took like creative liberties. Like they changed things.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't
And
reach it,
which
but I heard
I don't
the part where Link becomes a giant. I think in the third
Yeah.
dungeon, I think is pretty different,
Yeah, it's like a totally different fight.
which is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, that's kind of an like you could can you take artistic liberties and do cool things? Sure, but like when you're basically doing an updated port of a game, like people probably want to play the
Yeah.
game
Yeah.
how it was.
There's don't fix what isn't broken, essentially, which is
you
sort
can
of what
add,
they.
you can add stuff. Adding stuff is good, and
Yeah.
like making quality of life changes is good. But when you're like changing very big parts of the game like that, like a boss fight, making it literally a different boss fight, like I don't like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair, for sure.
Trying to think of other aspects. I mean, the thing is that Majora's Mask really is a marvel of reused assets. Like, because they were
really
crunched. They were so crunched on getting this game out, and the fact that they were able to reuse everything and sort of just make it work is super impressive just from a development standpoint. And it's you don't get the duology like in the same
A lot faster than Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Ooh. Yeah, it is really interesting actually to look at Ocarina of Time compared to Majora's Mask when they've set out to do two very different things, and you still have the similarities between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, where they're still essentially the same game. Just Tears of the Kingdom has more plus a crafting element that just is out of this world.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
mean,
one
Tears.
thing that
I mean,
really-
with Majora, they didn't like they reused like models and stuff and like animations, but they didn't reuse like the world. They built a new world. Obviously, it's much smaller, but like Tears of the Kingdom, a lot of that game is Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, just above and below as
More
well.
layers.
So
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, that's the thing is like it really comes down to those talking points about how do you feel about the changes, because the core game, despite my issues, Majora's Mask is good. It's a very different Zelda game, but I remember finishing it and being like, yeah, this might be a top 5 Zelda for me, at least for the 3DS version. And I haven't gone back to, having not gone fully through it, I can't safely declare one way or the other now, but I think it's still up there. It's just one of those Zeldas that stick out to you as a game. And yeah, I mean, let me take a look at some of the other changes that have been in here.
How many 3D Zeldas are there?
God, off the top of my head, let's see.
I want to say
I
7.
don't know if you count Spirit Tracks.
Seven?
Yeah, Ocarina.
Not counting. Not
You're not
counting
those.
the.
Okay.
Not counting those.
Yeah, I figure you're talking about the
yeah,
console
7, right?
3D ones, but yeah, Ocarina,
Yeah,
Majora, Wind Waker,
So-
Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and then Tears and Breath.
Okay, so all right, but it's top 5 for me by default because I don't like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
and not a fan of 2D Zelda.
Ooh. Getting hot in here.
Not a fan of
No,
2D
I meant,
Zelda.
so I meant no, I love 2D Zelda. I meant like top 5 3D Zelda.
Oh, top 5 3D. Okay.
I kind of like they're kind of separated in my mind. Like I can't say favorite Zelda because there's too many differences between the 2D and 3D ones.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like favorite 3D, favorite 2D because favorite 2D at Link's Awakening is pretty easily the
man.
first. Yeah.
I go back and forth between Link's Awakening and Link to the Past every day. Every day it's a different one. It's so hard for me. One thing that really stood out to me while I was doing this replay is just how much the atmospheric element of Majora's Mask is nailed. And this is also true of Ocarina of Time in certain places like the Forest Temple and such, but Majora's Mask has such a different, unique feeling atmosphere. And this was always something I felt back playing the original as a teen and playing the 3DS version, but there's something really magical in kind of a creepy way about the intro sequence when you're going into the tree, down the rabbit hole, and then you're in the waterway with the water wheel and the music is playing. It feels like there is just secrets right beyond reach, right outside the bound of the game world, where there's just something more to be discovered, something big, and there's a real sense of mystery with the atmosphere in this game, like with the Happy Mask salesman, and you're talking down on the water. I don't know, just something. It's hard to explain really, but just a real sense of magic and mystery. And if you just go just beyond where the game lets you go, you discover something even crazier. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I definitely got that feeling again. The music really goes a long way towards selling what
I
I'm
mean,
talking about.
the beginning of the game literally feels like it's weird because, and I don't think any other Zelda game does this. The beginning of Majora's Mask feels like you're already kind of in a dungeon,
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
That's a good way
like
to put
that
it.
kind of vibe.
It's well, and actually, that's a good way to put it. Majora is just you. If you click with its vibe, I think then you're sold on it because it's unlike anything else. And I get you. If you don't click with its vibe, then I don't think there's anything this game can really do to change your mind.
Yeah.
Because the dungeons are fine, but and there's some clever ones, but also they're also kind of a pain in the ass.
That's yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're not the
I
best
don't love-
dungeons in the series.
Yeah, I'm very down on Majora's Mask's dungeons, kind of like the way I am about Breath of the Wilds. I was never a big fan of the Divine Beasts, and they just kind of felt more of a slog to get through, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That they were actually fun. That said, at least Majora's Mask's dungeons are more uniquely themed than the Divine Beasts.
Yeah. At least they're dungeons.
Yeah.
At least they're actually, they're like
Yeah.
proper
They're
dungeons.
dungeons. It's just
and,
you also have to take that extra time to try to find all those fairies so you can get those upgrades that really do help.
This is funny. Alpha Line brought up a great point in our live audience chat, asking how many here played with the Pro Controller and not the Switch N64 controller. I played with the Pro Controller, and man, it makes those archery mini games so much harder, though.
Yeah.
Because it's just so finicky in a way the N64 version wasn't, because it's not the original hardware, of course. And man, it's so much harder aiming the bow with the for the mini games on the Switch controller.
That's crazy. Because I have no context for this.
Okay.
Like I don't know what that feels like.
It's just it just feels twitchier. I don't know if you've emulated N64 games. It's like it's hard to emulate that the weirdness that is the N64's analog stick and how that was sort of structured. So using the Switch N64 controller is pretty much ideal for this. That said, the NSO version might be the best way to play Majora's Mask, if only because you can plop down a save point right before you take one of the mini games and to just keep trying.
Oh yeah. Yep, that's what I did. Yeah,
it's
just safe.
that is the best thing. Like, don't have to worry about wasting time and have to reset or have to run out of money or anything of that nature. Just pop down that save point and bam, just keep trying until you get it. It helps a lot.
Yeah,
I think the last time I beat the game prior, it was I think I used a GameCube controller.
Oh wow, how was that?
And that felt
wow.
It felt fine.
Okay.
I think it was on it because it was I played it so that when I said before the 3DS version came out, it was the Wii Virtual Console I played it on.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
that makes. I mean, that's how I played the original Ocarinas off the GameCube port of that, and you don't have the C buttons, and certainly don't have the C buttons here. But I don't find the C buttons that much of an issue with Zelda games, just because I'm used to flicking, and it's never caused me issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just the aiming.
But man, going back to having no gyro aiming though, that I felt that the gyro aiming in the 3DS version was just chef's kiss. I've loved gyro aiming myself, but not having that, you can definitely feel the drop in finesse.
Speaking of C buttons, you know what's stupid in this game?
What's that?
That C button sword.
Oh yeah.
I don't like that sword. I don't like the C button sword.
You get the Great Fairy Sword at one point. You can't just can't upgrade
and it's an
to
item.
it. Yeah, it's an item.
Yep,
so
I forgot about that. Yeah.
Never
It's
bothered
so
using
weird.
it.
Yeah, I didn't either.
I don't.
That's funny. I completely forgot about the Great Fairy Sword. It looks cool. Looks cool as hell. But yeah.
Why is it an item?
I don't know. I don't
I don't know
know.
why it's an item.
I am curious though whether you guys bother do you, of course, if you get all the masks, do you use the Fierce Deity mask in the final boss or to make it just a cakewalk, or do you actually try to have some challenge against Majora?
I prefer to have challenge against Majora. Like the Fierce Deity mask is cool, to see and use as a spectacle and just to mess around with, but it just makes the final battle such a joke. And Majora is supposed to be this really menacing, scary, creepy world-ending Ardrich entity, right? And I just like the idea of it actually posing a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, this is also young Link's journey too. It's not faux adult Link's journey. This is young Link's journey, and I it felt symbolic. It feels symbolic to complete the journey as young Link.
I can't stand the Fierce Deity mask because it's so like underutilized potential.
Yeah,
it drives me crazy because by the time you get it, it's like, what's the point?
Yeah,
and like all of my like experience with that mask is because I said before, I don't like side questing, and I don't like 100%ing Zelda games in the first place. Really, like there's plenty of like all 100% platformers. But in terms of like Zelda games and stuff, I don't 100% them. So like for this game, it's like the game is 100%ing the game for the most part.
Yeah.
So, and I don't like side quests, so it's not something that I usually do. But like most of my experience with the Fierce Deity mask is like when I was a kid, I would use there was like a Game Shark code. I think you can technically do it with a glitch, but like there was a Game Shark code where you could just use the Fierce Deity's mask like anywhere.
Oh, I think so. Yeah.
And that's cool. That was fun, and it's actually kind of weird because if you ever do it, the game's not built around Adult Link, so everything looks really small when you're Adult Link. I don't know why it's that much of a difference, but a lot of that game, the scale of everything looks very off because you're not supposed to be. It's weird. Anyway, that was cool. That's fun because I'm like, okay, now I get to. Obviously, it served no purpose, but I'm like, this is fun because at least I get to mess around with like this sort of Adult Link in this world. It's fun. That mask, you don't use it for anything except for Majora, and it's like, oh, cool. You can go back and beat the old bosses. Who cares? What's the point?
Yeah,
honestly, it just drives me nuts because it's such a. It's like what's the armor in Twilight Princess?
Oh, the
stupid magic
rupee armor or whatever. Yeah, the magic armor or whatever.
Yeah.
That just eats rupees.
It's like stuff like that. It's like what's even the point? Like you go through like in Ocarina, you go through that whole like trade quest or whatever to get the Bigoron sword, and you can use it.
Yeah.
In the game.
And it's not necessarily be the best because you can't use your shield at the same time. It's stronger, but there's also a holdback to it, which makes it interesting in that way.
Yeah.
It's just it's cool. I like when the game rewards you with stuff that's actually usable. It's kind of a waste of, like, isn't okay, cool, I earned this, whatever. But it's kind of a waste. It's like that jump you get at the end of Mario 64 when you get all the I'm like, what is this for?
Oh god, it is. It so is.
Yeah, Nintendo's really bad at that, where it's just a lot of their games like, you 100%ed it. We don't know what to give to you for a reward, so here, just this thing that really doesn't add much to the game at all. Honestly, if we ever did get another Majora's Mask port, it'd be cool if they found some way to do something with the Fierce Deity Mask, because it is so popular. Give it its own dungeon, like post-game dungeon or something.
I was thinking the same thing. That would have been cool.
So, actually, now thinking about it, why can't you use it outside of boss fights? Because to get it, the rest of the game has to be done in the first place. So it's not like it breaks the rest of the game.
I don't know.
You should have just made it. You should have just made it usable everywhere. It wouldn't have changed anything. Like the game's beaten already.
Why not let you just run around and play with it? Yeah. It's weird.
It makes sense. But yeah, I mean,
God, I hate that mask.
It is a cool design though. But yes, the mask itself is.
It's a cool design. I love that I get to look at it for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh God. Is there anything else to really say about this one? Because even as soon as we got it, it's like, it's still good. Might be issues, but it's still good. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to say?
I'll say this. Link's Tomorrow dance is goated. I'll say that much.
True.
I can never get enough of that dance. It's so good.
I don't think that the 3DS version is better or worse. I think there's merits to both, and they're different. Obviously, and at this point, I would say, like, originally I would have said this. Oh well, the 3DS version is more accessible. Now it's not. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
true. It's
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there are merits to both, honestly.
No.
It's really hard for me. Oh, go ahead, Derek.
Oh no, go ahead. Go. You finish your sentence.
Like prior to this, I would have pretty clearly pointed to the 3DS version as the superior one for me, and in some ways that's still true. But replaying this in the N64 version like we have, it's kind of given me a new a new fresh pair of eyes on the original version, and now I kind of am feeling like no, they both really have their own merits. It's just a matter of what kind of experience you want, and
it's not the same conversation as Ocarina. Like
Definitely
Ocarina, the 3DS version.
Yeah, it's the
definitely,
better
I
version,
completely
with
agree.
no doubt. With Majora,
Yeah.
I think it might come down to which you played first, and because I played 3DS first, that's just my preferred version because I lost myself into that and I didn't notice any of the changes. And when I went back to this one and experienced that, like, I can agree that the atmosphere is better, but I just generally prefer what the 3DS version did, but I'm also used to that version. So this feels like the weird version to me, but I also get why people would feel the exact opposite because of that. Whereas like they changed these things that they didn't need to change. Why'd they mess with this? It makes no sense. And that's where the conversation
there's a lot of
comes
stuff
in.
that I disagree with. There's a lot of stuff on that front that I disagree with, like a lot of those criticisms, but some of them are warranted. Some of them I don't agree with though. But I mean, overall, it's a good version of the game. It's just I like a lot of the changes. They may have taken a couple too many changes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it also must be said, on going the other way too, that playing the N64 version on NSO with things like save states really smooths over one of the hardest approachability issues for me to get over with it, in terms of it, having such a limited save system. So, it's also easy to say
That
but
I
I'm
couldn't
not having
stand.
to worry. Yeah, I was not a
That
fan
I
of
never
that.
liked. So
And
like I always hated that. I always hated that as a kid. It reminded me of, like, because I always, and I guess it's because anxiety. I couldn't stand that, and I couldn't stand, like, it reminded me of, like, games like Perfection.
Yes.
Where, like, like when I have like a time limit and I'm like, oh no, something bad's gonna happen. It makes me crazy, and the fact that I couldn't just save was like that game. That is one thing I will say about the 3DS version, because the original version stressed me out real bad.
And you had to have that change for the 3DS version because it's portable. You have to be able to save anywhere.
Yeah.
So.
That's one thing that I don't agree with, because not with I agree with you, but that's one of the big criticisms where, like, oh, it takes away from the game because you can just save wherever. Nah, sorry. I would rather be able to save anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the argument going the other way in terms of the time limit being meant to feel oppressive, but at the same time, give me that just approachability. Like, I just, I'm a big fan of games that go out of their way to be as convenient as possible for the player to play. And so for me, being able to save anywhere is just a huge bonus.
I didn't like the game feeling oppressive in that regard, because that's the part I didn't like about it, because the world already feels oppressive.
Right.
True.
So even when you take that away, the world still feels oppressive. So it wasn't.
I didn't feel like I was missing
it
anything.
Wasn't necessary.
But it's also one of those things like, oh, you don't like the new save system? Great. You don't have to use it.
Yeah.
Right.
You can totally play it. You
can self-impose difficulty as much as you want.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah. Well, I think we've said all we've wanted to say about The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask, but let's go ahead and give our final verdict. Even though it's pretty likely you all know what we're going to say, we got to make it official. Would you recommend it as an NSO, or tell people to stay away with an NO? Gil, let's start with you.
NSO.
That's a much better improvement over last rating you gave.
Nice.
Forgot about that.
Yeah. What about you, Ash?
I mean, I think it's pretty clear this is going to be a pretty easy NESO. And I've gotten very lucky, as we've talked about, Derek, with the games we've gotten so far. They've all been pretty easy to rank. And this one's no different. It's an NESO.
Yeah, and just agreement. It might not be my favorite version, but it's Majora's Mask. It's good. It's a fun time. You have to go into it with a certain mindset, but if you can, and it's a lot easier when you can have the save states of the NSO, it's a good time. So yeah, and yes, so for me. But yeah, what about all of you? Have you played Majora's Mask before, or was this somehow your first time? And before we go, where can everyone find you at? Gil, plug away.
youtube.com/GillyTheKid is where you can find me.
Yeah, definitely check out all of their videos. And Ash, why don't you plug away too? Even though we're on the same team, you should still plug.
I mean, yeah, I mean, you can find me right here on Event Gaming, obviously. But if you want to follow me personally on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at my name, Ash Paulsen, ASHPAULSEN, and follow me for I just tweet about video games, dogs, food, video game music, weather, fun stuff. No drama. So I'll be tweeting a lot about FF7 Rebirth in the coming week for sure. No spoilers, of course. But yeah, that's where you can find me if you want to follow my personal social media.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for joining me. And if you, thank you both for joining me. Sorry about that. And if all of you joining us enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments. And please consider supporting us at patreon.com/gvgaming, which includes our live audience tier that will allow you to watch Game Club live as it's being recorded. But now it's time for the Wheel of Games to choose next week's title, as I'm joined by my special guests, Xan Shadow and Caro. Are you both ready to see what game we're playing?
Give me the wheel again.
If I say no, I don't think it changes anything. So let's do it.
This is one of those "but thou must" false choice type of things. You don't get a say in the matter. We're just going to do it. So
sounds good.
All right, let's bring up the wheel, spin it, and see what we're playing this week. And it is going to be Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Genesis.
Yo!
I love that game.
Dude, talk about
Yo.
I was worried that we would get something really long or just
garbage.
something
really bad.
It's just casually get one of the best beat 'em ups ever made. No big deal.
Yeah, no biggie. It's okay.
With one of the best soundtracks ever.
Oh, dude. You know what? It's actually funny. I have not gone back to Streets of Rage 2 since Streets of Rage 4 came out. So
That'll be
it will be interesting. Yeah. Because if people don't know, Streets of Rage 4 is the best beat 'em up of all time. So
I'm not disagreeing with that.
But I do love Streets of Rage 2. It was one of the first games I got on the Wii Virtual Console.
Let's save that for next. Let's save that for next time, Ted, because we still got to talk about that in the beginning of next episode. So we got to leave a taste for them. So there you have it. We'll see you next time as we cover Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Genesis. Thanks for watching, and until next time, bye.